Hi everyone, welcome back to the Wonder of Anime podcast. I'm your host, Lisa, and I am a multimedia content creator, and my work spans across my blog, my YouTube channel, and of course, this podcast. And this episode, I am so excited. I have one of my dream list guests that I've had, like, if you look at my notes app, I have their name like twice because I'm like, let me make a list of guests that I want to invite. But I finally got them on, and I'm so excited to be here with Colleen, the manga connoisseur. So Colleen is a self-proclaimed shoujo manga connoisseur that got their start on TikTok before moving to YouTube to create video essays shining light on the often left behind demographic of media. So welcome, Colleen.
Thank you for having me.
My mind immediately was like, did I pronounce Colleen correctly? Like,
yeah. It's very funny how often I get like crazy pronunciations of my name. I get Colin and Colleen a lot. But like people will leave off the L, they'll leave off an E. I'm like, how do you get that?
No, people, I just am like I'm saying it now, and I'm like, you know when you say a word too much, you're like, is this right? Yeah. But no, I don't know. Colin, no, that they're doing too much. And
yeah, right.
Your name is not that uncommon. But I'm so excited to have you here, and it's funny that you say you got your start on TikTok, because I like discovered your TikTok way later than I like this. I feel like I've known about you on YouTube and just Twitter and being in the shoujo manga space. And I think later on I had gone back and I had done some like trending sounds, and I realized it was you, and I was like, oh, this is the same Colleen. Like, I didn't even know. I was like, I don't know why my TikTok is not showing me you, but I actually thought you got your start on YouTube. So what was your content creation journey like? Because I feel like you have this huge platform, but I don't think you've been making content that long, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, but I think it's been 3 or 4 years now. So I've only been doing it for like a really short amount of time. But before that, I was on TikTok for 3 years or so, because I started in 2020. You know, everyone was on TikTok because of COVID, and I do freelance photography, and since photography is a very person-oriented job, I wasn't able to do any jobs anymore, so I was like, oh, I'm gonna get back into my hobbies that I used to have before getting more into photography, and also I have all this time now, so I started to get back into anime and manga and revisit, you know, the old classics that I used to love. And then that's when I got on TikTok, and I kind of just started making like manga recommendation videos where it was just, you know, the classic like point at the screen. And then from there I kind of started getting more into actually doing talking on TikTok, and they started introducing like longer and longer content as well. And I realized, like, hey, I kind of like, you know, doing these more essay formats. And a couple people were like, hey, well, you should move to YouTube. I think you would be really good at YouTube. But for me, YouTube was always this, like, idealized, you know, like, you have to have a good camera. You have to have good equipment. Even though I grew up in that time where YouTube was a very just like person in front of their camera, I still was just like, this is too much. You have to have a good crew. But I put out that first video in like 2023, I believe, and it did pretty well. And then my second video was the decline of shoujo anime, and it got like 500,000 views, and that's how I'm here.
I think that second video was probably one of the first videos of yours that I seen, because we actually have a mutual friend, Phoenix, from the Anime Tea. And me too, I love her. I've actually met her in person. She's so cool.
But she just seems like the sweetest.
She is. And it's so funny because we're talking about not pronouncing things before we started recording, and she did an anime the whole time I could not pronounce it. But that's on the anime's fault. That was not on our fault. But she did a video responding to your video and cited you a lot. And I'm somebody, I know this is not common, and not to be like, I'm not one of those people, but I'm someone that if somebody cites their sources, I'm going to the sources and I'm going to be like, oh, like they're referencing this other creator. We kind of are on the same wavelength. Like, let me go and follow them. And I'm pretty sure that's how I had discovered you in that video. And then the other video, I don't know if this was your first video or what order it came, but the video where you talk about the demographics of like shoujo, shonen, and like what it is. That video, I feel like I was like, whoa, this is awesome. Because I'll admit, I definitely was somebody that was like, demographics don't matter. In the sense of, I didn't like the constant like correction of people. And I would be like, okay, I think one of my fears online is people like coming after me. So I was like, let me steer clear of this. But that video that you did actually like really changed my mind, because I wasn't on the wavelength where it's like, oh, this is actually like very sexist and this is really hurting creators, and us flattening the demographics like does more harm than it does good. So that was kind of like my like introduction to you, and I was like, oh, I'm obsessed. And then I follow you on all the other social medias. But I love that. Like, I always think like if things are meant for you, like they are, like you transformed to YouTube and it was like, yeah, everything aligned.
Which is really crazy because, like I said, I grew up watching YouTube. Like, some of my biggest, I guess inspirations, you could call them inspirations, even if, like, I don't do the same content as them. But, you know, like, I grew up watching Smosh. I watched so much Smosh as a kid. I always wanted to do, like, sketch videos and stuff with my brother. And Mika Kitty, before she became Tessa Violet and is now, like, a big pop star. But I always watch them, so it's really crazy to, like, have grown up watching all these people on YouTube, and now, like, people consider me a YouTuber. I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah, there definitely was that era, because I feel like too, like I really got on YouTube in like high school,
yeah,
and I was into like the Ryan Higas and the Michelle Phan, who's now suddenly in a cult or something.
Right? Oh my gosh, like, that was crazy.
That is very crazy. Every time I hear an update, I'm like, oh my god. But I grew up in that era too, and it's funny because I always was like, I want to do YouTube, and I think because they kind of grew up with the platform, it really became like the Casey Neistat, where it's like this like cinematic, like I'm going to the grocery store, and it's like $1 million movie, and you're like, okay, this seems so unattainable. But it is like cool that now like you're on that other side, because I know so many people who reference you from YouTube, and it's like, yeah, you're one of them.
There's a certain je ne sais quoi about YouTuber instead of TikToker as well. Mm-hmm. Not to knock TikTokers, obviously, but it feels more like, oh yeah, that's cool. You know?
It is, and I think that TikTok gets like a weird stigma, but I also think some of it is well deserved, because I think TikTok has this. It's just so much more easy to like luckily go viral, and sometimes the people that go viral, you're like, this person is a complete idiot. And you don't have that trust, I feel like YouTube, where people like kind of build that trust up with who they're subscribed to.
Yeah, that's definitely a difference between TikTok and YouTube, where a lot of like TikTok comments I got, or like people who followed me, they probably didn't really like see much of my content outside of every once in a while the free page giving them something. But a lot of the comments I would get were like from people who don't know me, don't know my content, just kind of like random people who found the video while they were scrolling. But on YouTube it's a lot different. Like I have really cultivated people who like come back and watch my videos, and they're like, oh, I see you connected this video to this video. Which I think is really cool, because I do a lot of like interspersing different ideas into different videos.
Yeah, as someone who's seen some of like a lot of your videos. I can agree with that statement. And I think too, this is something that I was actually talking about on TikTok, where I find that this short form content and how random the For You page does really like hurts conversations and discussions in a way that YouTube doesn't, because it's like you're scrolling and a lot of people are like, okay, let me do this hot take to like garner attention, garner virality. And people who are scrolling are then seeing that, immediately reacting emotionally, and they don't really have time to sit with and process the feelings because they're just being shown this based on an algorithm. And then they like reply and make like their own like elevated or emotional response. And I feel like YouTube cultivates an audience where usually like you have to seek someone out. You're like, you know what? I actually want to know more about My Hero Academia. Let me put that in the search bar and find people who are talking about it. And I find that when you're seeking it out, you're arriving at a completely different mindset because you're not on the defense of your favorite show. I mean, there are some people, but like not, you know, it's not the same as like a TikTok where somebody's like, how dare you say that shonen is trash? And then like now all of a sudden people are feuding in your comments.
Yeah, I can definitely attest to that. And even personally, I realized once I got off of TikTok, I was much more combative. Like, I'm still pretty combative. I don't think I could say I'm not, but TikTok definitely made me, it like forced me to be angrier because you just see the same things over and over again a lot of times, and you just kind of get angry at it, and it gives you that outlet to do it immediately. You're not like crafting a response back or anything. And that's what I've really appreciated about moving to YouTube is if I am angry, if I like have something I want to say, I sit down and I write about it for like 4 to 5 days or so. And I can really make my points and like actually have arguments behind them, which you can't really do on TikTok very well. I mean, there's 10 minutes to talk about something, but you definitely can't formulate it in a moment as well as you could writing a script.
Yes, and then another thing that I'm always on these high horses, but I'm like, people need to slow down. Slow down and interpret the media that you're consuming and like realize that this platform is really set to aggravate you, to make you to respond, get these emotional responses out of you that you may not have the range for. Or if you have the range, you don't have like the evidence to support whatever it is that you're arguing. But I always find that like lately it's kind of like all that I think about, because I will go on TikTok sometimes to post, but I then immediately have to log off because I'm like, I see stuff and I'm like, yeah, this is so annoying. But I'm like, that's what it wants me. It wants me to be annoyed. So I hit that front camera record and I'm like, well, actually, you're wrong. Because I can.
That's why I've been very liberal with the block button on Twitter lately, too. I'm like, this is not even just like, you're annoying, I hate you. It's more like, you're annoying, I don't want to respond to you, and I will get too mad if I see it. So I need to block you, and I need to get you out of my vision so I don't do anything.
Yes, and I wish people like... People are like, oh, like, don't let the troll get to you. But sometimes some people, like, they'll have opinions or they'll have things. I think I have more people blocked than I follow people. Because I immediately am like, block everybody. I don't care. I saw, like, even if it's, like, just like, I saw somebody have a bad take about something that I love. I said block. Like, I was just like, I don't need to see this on my feed. No. I need positive things.
Yeah. I'm just like, if I want to say something and it's not worth saying, I need to block you. I can't have you anywhere near me.
No, and especially now I feel like with the rise of like bots or people that are paying for the subscription, like they want to keep interacting with you to get that engagement. It's like, I'm not going to give that to you. Like, we're not dealing with that. But this does lead me into my next question that I had, or more so wanted to focus, because a lot of people know you and associate you with shoujo, specifically like the demographics and explaining to people like what is shoujo and why it's important for us to care about. And that, you know, that has come with the territory where you are getting people like saying crazy things in your I love where you like update your bio based on like some crazy comment that somebody left. But when did that start for you where you realized like, okay, this is something that I need to be, or I want to focus my content on bringing more attention to?
I feel like it kind of just happened naturally, because when you read so much shoujo and josei and you kind of just don't see anyone talk about it, you start to like put the pieces together. So when I was on TikTok, you know, most of my content was about shoujo because that's what I like to read. That's what I always like to read. So when I started getting back into manga, and most of the stuff I was rereading was all like the shoujo manga I used to read as a kid, and I didn't really see any anime or like manga TikTokers talking about any of these series, and you know, they would make all these huge generalizations like, oh, shoujo was all romance, and I'd be, well, like, no, that's not true, because, you know, I just read Basara again, and that's not just a romance series. Like, why are we doing that? And then you just kind of put the pieces together. You see the sexism that comes into these conversations. You see the misogyny that people still hold, and like the stereotypes that they have on like media made for women. And I just was like, you know what? I need to start talking about this. And it was really my love for shoujo, my love for josei manga too, that made me want to do it as well. Because like, it's not just that I want people to respect the demographic or that I want more anime made of it. It's like, I want people to like what I like too. And I know some people like think that's annoying, that's my opinion, but like, why wouldn't I want to share what I love with people? And especially if they look down on it so much and you just want to like open their mind to something.
Yeah, I think that's so important, and I find that there definitely is like the typical like, oh, this is the shoujo vibes, and it's a seinen. You're like, okay, this is Skip and Loafer. This is not shoujo. But also, what you said about sharing what you love, like, it sounds so cliche, but so many people are not sharing what they love. So the whole reason I created this format for the podcast, because I was like, why are people talking about things they hate? Like, let's talk about the things that you love and bring you joy. And it's unfortunate that there is so much shoujo that people, or josei, that people don't have access to, simply because of like the sexism and people. And I always hate when people are like, it's not that deep. And I'm like, it is that deep. You just don't want to open your brain because it probably doesn't go that far down. Like, you probably don't have the range to realize that it is much deeper thing than it's like, oh, they're just not like licensing this. And it's like, why are they not licensed? Put the pieces you're so close, put them together.
I feel like a lot of people don't want to ask the why, because then they also have to ask themselves like, oh, so why am I not reading it then? And then, you know, it opens a whole can of worms that they may not want to admit to themselves, because I do feel like a lot of women still hold that, you know, stereotype with themselves. Oh, these shoujo and josei manga, they're all just romance series. If I want something light and fluffy, I'll go there. But they're just like sweet candy. They're a dessert after the good stuff, after the big good meal of shonen. And, you know, as a kid, I was really lucky that shoujo was never that for me. But I had that idea about so many other things that were like made for girls. So I was always so opposed to it, because I was like, ew, girl stuff, that's gross, I don't like that. And, you know, later in life, I'm like, oh, it's because I'm non-binary that I'm like that. But, yeah, so, like, just coming from my own place of, like, I know how it feels to be like that, and it sucks to find out later in life that, you know, girl stuff isn't all bad. Girl stuff is just as good. It's just as complex. It's, like, just as well made. That I kind of just hope that I can keep people from being like that in their teens or 20s or whatever.
Yeah, it is hard for people when you see, like, everywhere you go, oh, let's have this big Demon Slayer display, like Naruto, and, like, you're going into the stores, and maybe you'll find something Sailor Moon. Like, maybe you'll see something, and then it's, like, the shoujo that does get licensed falls under that, like, umbrella of, like, fluffy and cute. It's like Tokyo Mew Mew. Actually, I'm not sure. I think that's a shoujo. I've never read it. I've never watched it. Cardcaptor Sakura. And it's something that I don't know. I think it was maybe Mac Loves Manga that they did a video on BL. And they said, they were talking about how specifically when women like something, then it's it's a negative thing. Like, it's a down, like, it's no longer like, oh, it's cool. And I feel like like we see that kind of like with shonen, where there's like a lot of women that like JJK, and it's like, oh well, women are liking it now, like now it sucks because women are in it. And I feel like shoujo suffers that like treatment where it's like, oh, it's women, like it's not that good, it's like mid or whatever, and it's like, well, actually it's not.
Yeah.
But I think those stereotypes of everybody just thinking it's romance and it's fluffy, and it's like, yeah, we need romance, like that's good too, but there's shoujo that and josei that have like literally changed lives and like change the course of everything, and it's like you're so stuck in those stereotypes that you'll never experience that because of that.
Yeah, I mean, we see that throughout all of history, really. You know, the biggest example is Beatles being like such like a popular group amongst women, and then, you know, once they kind of pivoted a little bit and they weren't the pop boys anymore, they went a little edgier, then it was like, oh, it's cool because guys like this. Yeah, so this has been a thing forever. I don't know why people think that it's not that deep. It's literally that deep because it is running deep within our culture at all times. Even with K-pop, you get that a lot too. People like look down on K-pop because a lot of girls like it. So it's just another facet of all the sexism. Hey!
Yeah, I think that too, and it's like the minute, and then you'll have where this one, like, there's that one guy that is like, well, actually, I love Sailor Moon, and people are like, well, that one man, like, then he becomes like the token, like, person standing up for all shoujo and josei, and it's like, okay, like, you needed his cosign in order to check it out. That also is something that, like, irks my soul.
I'm
so
laughing
many times.
so much because there's literally a guy on TikTok when I was on TikTok that was like that, and he was like the shoujo guy because, like, he was a big fan of Kimi ni Todoke, I think, or Lovely Complex. And everyone was like, he's the shoujo guy. And, like, all of the shoujo tag was just popular videos of him, and I was just like, what are we doing here?
Why, like, okay, this one man, like, great for you that you've, like, discovered shoujo, but
yeah,
on a deep, like, what else is there? And it's like, again, it's like, and I think this is a lot of my issue with, like, the social media-fication of, like, anime and manga, where it's like, you need that cosign from that one person or that one creator, like, oh, shoujo's not all bad, this one man said, and it's like, why can't you guys think for yourselves and open it up? But I like I said, you really changed my mind, because I wasn't against, like, I don't record on that side because then I had to move everything, but I'm like the clamp connoisseur. That's my thing. Like, everybody knows me for clamp. I grew up on clamp. I have a massive clamp collection, so I know the real, like, you know, shoujo's, like, you know, let's talk about eggs. Let's talk about this, you know, RG Veda and the damage that it has done to the psyche. But I find that, like, so for me, I was always like, yeah, like, I know shoujo can be good, but I'm like, I also don't like engaging in, like, stuff on social media, like, back and forth with people, just because, one, I'm like, I will go there and then y'all don't want me to go there. Yeah. That's a big problem. So I always felt like I thought that people were just doing too much, like, correcting others. Because I'm like, if they're wrong, like, let them be wrong. But then after, like, following you and, like, watching your content, I'm like, this matters because the people that are, you know, like, this doesn't exist in the vacuum. Like, companies are watching social media. They're looking at what people are talking about. They're looking at, like, what shows, what animes, like, people are interested in. They're licensing things based off social media. And if we're not correctly talking about shoujo and we're like, oh, Skip and Loafer, yay, which I do love Skip and Loafer, but you know, we're like, this gives me the shoujo vibes, and it's not a shoujo, and they're like, okay, well, let's go through this seinen magazine and see what else we can pull from here, versus going to a shoujo magazine and getting something else that we may be interested in.
And that's a really good example, too, because Skip and Loafer comes from Afternoon magazine, and in one of my videos, I pointed out the discrepancy where Afternoon had 6 manga adapted into anime that were all coming out in the exact same season. It was Medalist, Skip and Loafer, Vinland Saga, Season 3, Yakuza Fiancé, and there was another one too, I can't remember. But then if you look at the Josei magazine that Kodansha also has, B-Love, which is where Chihayafuru comes from. They only had Nina the Starry Bride, and that was their first anime adaptation of a josei manga from that magazine since Chihayafuru started in 2011. So, like, it's that discrepancy. It's hard to look at that and go, okay, but why aren't they picking stuff up from here? Like, it's not like there's not good series coming from B-Love. It's not like they can't make a series that has just drama and, like, character depth and stuff like that, because, like, they'll do it for a seinen, they'll do it for a shonen, but why aren't they picking it up from here? And it all has to do, you know, with, like, producers and money and budget, and not giving the money to shoujos because they don't think they're going to make as much, so they have to go with the shonen because it's more popular, or whatever the excuse is.
And it's people not realizing that those excuses are misogynistic.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
Like, yeah, why isn't there the money? Why all of a sudden it's not something that people believe in?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a very eye-opening interview from the Betsu Frey magazine editor who was like, the anime industry is largely run by men. They don't allocate budget to shoujo as much as they do other magazines, and also most of them only want to adapt shoujo into live action because they only see the source material as being like fodder for like a date movie. So like they just don't respect it just as much as they don't care about it.
Right.
So.
And it's that disrespect that then again feels all these harmful things, and I wish people would like see, like open their eyes and be like, it's much bigger than what this is. Like this doesn't exist in a vacuum where it's like, oh, this is only about what magazine it goes in, and it's like, no, like where else?
Yeah.
What else are we doing? But like I said, I always love your work in that aspect, and I think, you know, I see now more than ever more people advocating for shoujo. I don't think it's enough, but I definitely think like we're moving in the right direction, and I'm hoping that people are taking more notice and given, like, you know, when we're asking for licenses and we're doing things, like look at what's being look at what's being asked for.
Yeah.
Because we're trying to make a difference.
Yeah.
But we could talk about shoujo and underrepresentation for a long time because I like getting angry about stuff at times. But that's not why I actually have you here. And I have you here. I have invited you to be in the expert seat about an anime. I think everyone, if they think about you, if they don't think about shoujo, they're specifically thinking about this anime/manga series. And that is, I'm going to try my best.
You got it.
Chihayafuru. Why am I saying it so weird? I think it's also because I am bilingual, so I read everything in Spanish, and I'm like trying to say it in Spanish. But this is an anime and manga series, and for those who are not familiar, what is Chihayafuru? Yeah, oh my god. Chihayafuru. There we go. It's the furu that's throwing me off.
Yeah, so Chihayafuru is this amazing, fantastic, beautiful anime manga series. Obviously started out as a manga and then was adapted into an anime by Yuki Suetsugu, who is my bestie because she follows me on Twitter. And it's about this girl named Chihaya who doesn't really have any passion in life. She kind of just follows her sister around, and she loves her sister so much, and she wants her sister to achieve her dream of being a model, but she doesn't really have anything for herself until she meets this transfer student at her school named Arata, and he teaches her about this sport called karate in Japan. So karate is a fun game to explain because for like anyone who is American, they're going to be very confused by it, but karate is this game where they take this thing called the Hyakunin Ishu, which is 100 poets. So it's 100 poems that were written like way, way back in Japan. And these are very famous, like they kind of do like memorization tests with this for kids in Japan. So they take those poems and they read them out. And then basically you have 25 cards in front of you, 25 cards in front of someone else. And they'll read the poem out, and then the second part of the poem, once they read the first part, you have to grab it faster, touch it, and like push it away. And that's the game of Karata. It's like mostly memorization, reflex, and then speed as well. And so when Chihaya learns about this sport, she like really gets into it. She gets her first card, which is the Chiha card, because that's her namesake, and that is why the title of the series is Chihayafuru, because Chihayafuru is the first part of one of the poems. So she gets her first card. She's like, oh my gosh, I love Karata so much. And her and Arata start playing Karata together with their friend Taichi, who's a little bit of a bully at the start. And he kind of like is jealous of Arata. He doesn't like that Arata's getting close to Chihaya because they were friends before they were friends. But eventually all three of them come together. They start a Karata team, but then Arata has to move away. And their team breaks up. Chihaya keeps playing Karata, and when she gets to high school, she reunites with Taichi, and they start a Karata club in high school together. And that's basically the whole setup for like the first 2 volumes.
So I told you this before recording, I read some of it, like in COVID when I was like, I'm going to read all shoujo/josei.
Yeah.
When I tell you that's not what I was imagining in the game, like, I don't know what I thought the game was. Sometimes when I read stuff, it doesn't, like, click in my head, and I was imagining a whole different game. So my mind right now is blown at the actual specifics of the game. But I do think I don't think they got into high school when I read. But I do remember Taichi being jealous. Yeah. And I remember I really have a soft spot when like someone has glasses and they're like the new kid. I had such a soft spot for that character. I was like, yes, he's so sweet.
Yeah, I think volume 2 or 3 is when they finally get into the high school stuff, and it actually really helps to start with the anime first for this series, just for the reason that you said, where it's like, this is a whole new sport for like people in America or anywhere else outside of Japan. So like watching it and hearing it is so helpful for when you move to the manga and you can be like, okay, I see exactly what they're doing now. I can understand like how this game is played. I think it's the same for any sports series, really. I think sometimes, you know, it's a little easier, like who hasn't seen a baseball game or something at one point. But like for Haikyuu, I know it was probably really helpful for some people who have never played volleyball before, who don't know how the rotation works, to have seen the anime first, and then they can go read the manga, and they're like, oh, okay, I can, like, see what's going on in my head.
Yeah, and it's funny because my, like, cardinal rule is I always watch the anime before I read the manga. But I didn't know that there was an anime, so yeah. I, like, skipped that part. But that's for the exact reasons. I also feel like if you read it first, I mean, if you, like, watch it first, you can't be disappointed in like the book, because I'm like, it's either going to be, you're gonna read it and be like, wow, this is amazing, the anime missed so much stuff, or you're gonna be mad at the anime but you're still gonna love the manga. Yeah. So when did you get introduced to the series in general?
I had a lovely friend on TikTok. I haven't spoken to her in quite a while, so I hope she's doing okay, but she was a huge fan of Chihayafuru, and for the longest time I was like, I need to watch this anime. I need to watch this anime. She says it's great. I have to check it out. And I just wasn't doing it. And then I watched a video from another mutual of mine called Replay Value. And it was a really great video about how the first 3 episodes or 4 episodes of the anime and how they kind of rearranged the manga series a little bit to set up the anime was like a really great change from the manga. And so I watched that and I was like, okay, you know what, it's finally time, I need to watch this anime. I watched the first 3 or 4 episodes in one sitting. I was like, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life. I was watching those and I had my husband come and he sat down next to me and we got so into it. There was like, from season 1 to 3, we would be out at any point of day and we'd be like, we need to get back home so we can keep watching Chihayafuru. Like, by the end of season 3, I was like, yes! You know, like, anything good happens, I'm like, sobbing tears. And so I think that was around like 2022, like a year before I started YouTube, because I was still on TikTok. I was doing so much Chihayafuru content on TikTok before I left. So yeah, I think around 2022. So I'm like semi-recent to the series in general.
I couldn't tell. Like, I thought you were like a lifer. Like, oh, I discovered this in childhood.
I wish I could be that cool to have found it when it came out in 2011.
So was there a certain point when you're watching the anime that you were like, this is my favorite? Like, this is going to the top of whatever list I already have?
It's hard to say if there was any certain point in the series that I felt that it was like, this is life-changing for me. I'm gonna say it might have been like episode 9 of season 1. I believe it was episode 9. It is for the silliest reason. But it's when Chihaya throws a birthday... No, wait. Taichi and the Karsa Club throw a birthday party for Chihaya. That's what it was. And... Chihaya comes up to Taichi, she's got a little piece of cake on her spoon, and she's like, oh, open wide, this one's for you, it's the last bite. And then she pulls away, she's like, haha, never mind, I'm gonna eat it. And he pulls her hand, he eats it off. And I was like,
Nothing
and
compared.
That's when my life was changed. That's when I was like, this is the greatest ship of all time. I think before that, I was already super into, like, the Karuta aspect of it. I was already, like, sold on that. So, like, it was really this is my ship. This is the two characters that I am going to be obsessed with for the rest of my life.
You know what's funny is I did not initially ship them, which is so weird for me because I'm very, like, the series tells me who to ship. Like, I'm very vanilla with my ships. Like,
yeah.
I'm not a Zutara. Like, that'll never be me. But I didn't, like, and I, like, granted, I didn't get that far, but I really thought the other guy, man, because I'm like, he got the glasses, he's the transfer student, like, I thought that was, like, indication that he was endgame. So I have, of course, seen so many spoilers of the series online. So
Probably because of me.
Probably because of you, and I think there's somebody else too that has like the one important scene tattooed on them, and I was like, okay.
Yeah.
So I've seen that scene, and I was like, how was I so wrong? Like, I'm never this wrong ever in my life. I was like, why did I think it was the other guy?
To be fair, so I was looking up because one of the things that you were like, any fun facts about the series? And so I was looking up some different like interviews and stuff beforehand just to make sure I had some little tidbits to give. But so Chihayafuru was actually only planned for 4 volumes, so she didn't really have like a set idea of where everything was going after those 4 volumes. Taichi started out as a supporting character. It wasn't until afterwards that she was like, oh wait, no, I want to see him do like so much better. I want to see him be a better person. I want to see him work really hard. And that's how he kind of became the main character after the fact. So you're not wrong in thinking that Arta would have been the main character because they definitely set it up like that.
Okay.
In those first volumes.
I'm justified because it's like I'm telling you, I'm so vanilla, and all my friends know. Like, I'm not jumping hoops to ship people that don't make sense. Like, so I was like, how was I wrong? But now having that, okay, I'm justified in not initially shipping them because they weren't planned.
I don't think they didn't really make sense as like a ship when they were kids anyway, because it was just Taichi being a little brat, you know?
Right. Yeah, and I think too, and sometimes I'm not a love triangle person because I hate conflict, and I always get secondhand embarrassment, but I'm usually like, I find that when sometimes the focus is on someone who is like that outcast, like, of course, the main character is going to take care of that person and be there. But everything, it all made sense in the end. So on that vein, what is something about Chihayafuru? Did I say it right? Chihayafuru. I think I'm overthinking it. But what is something...
Say it, you got it.
that either the characters or points that people always get wrong about the series, or if it's like a common misconception in the fandom?
It's hard to say because I feel like a lot of people who are in the Chihayafuru fandom, they kind of left after the last chapter, the last volume. Like, if they weren't happy with what happened, they were like, okay, I'm done with this. Like, goodbye, this series isn't for me anymore. So, like, there's not as many conflicting opinions anymore, I think. And I think that's also just from the fact that Chihayafuru is over at this point, and the anime hasn't been out since like 2019 now. But I think the one thing that, like, just in general is kind of like a misconception about it is that this is a romance series. And while yes, I know I was just talking about my ship and my romance and the characters I love together, but it's not a romance series in the sense that, like, this is about the romance. You're only doing these things in between to have romantic moments between characters. It is firmly about Chihaya and Taichi separately as people, and also Arata, but I feel like he doesn't have, like, a huge role in the series after a certain point. But it's really about those three and just dedicating yourself to something that you love and finding a passion within yourself and following that and not letting other people tell you what you can or can't do. And it's really just about, you know, like, connection and finding people who are your people. And I feel like some people put way too much focus on romance in this. Like, I remember when I was on TikTok, there was a lot of people that were always like, okay, so who gets together? When do they kiss? When do they start dating? It's like, it's not about that. It's about the karta. It's about the connection. It's about, like, teammates and friendship. And yeah, romance is a part of it because, you know, sometimes romance is just a part of things in your life. But it's not the main focus.
See, this is why I feel like in alignment, because in a lot of conversations that I have about anime and manga, I have them offline until I'm ready to verbalize them online, because I'm like, I don't need to hate mob after me. But I was just telling my friend that I feel like everything now, and this is maybe come hypocritical from someone who, like, reads and talks about smut and stuff. Like, that's part of it. But I find that everything has been, like, and I blame also, like, book talk and the trophification of books. Everything is boiled down to, like, when are they going to get together? When is the action happening? When is this? When is that? And it's like, we're not enjoying stories for the journey anymore and for the ride. And, like you'll see a story and people will be like, what chapter this happens? And it's like, can you get there? Can you read it and get there? And I think, and, you know, not to beat a dead horse, but again, with the mischaracterization of shoujo and everybody just thinking that shoujo is romance, people are going into this and it's like, okay, when is all the romance happening? And it's like so much, and I love, but I'm like, there's so much more, like, romance love isn't end all be all. Yeah. Like, there's friendship love and familial love and love of a sport in a series like this where, you know, it's her journey and the other character's journey playing this game. So that would be frustrating. It's like, okay, but when they're getting together, it's like, but did you see the one battle or the game? Like, yeah. Are you tore up about it?
And I think the reason it makes me angrier with Chihayafuru when people are really just like, oh, this ship didn't happen, so I'm done with this series. Like, I will say, this is a spoiler, so for anyone, okay. I'm trying not to be, like, too spoilery for people listening or watching, but spoiler. When I saw spoilers that, well, they weren't real spoilers, but when I saw spoilers that, oh, Arata and Chihaya are going to get together, there was a confession, blah, blah, blah. This is so pathetic, but I remember crying and going, if that's what Yuki Suetsugu wants.
I must
because
accept.
I am a menace. I was like, if that's what she wants, that's okay. I'll be upset. I'll feel really bad for Taichi, but if that's what she wants, I'll accept it. But, like, if you're throwing away something you spent 200 plus chapters on, 3 seasons of an anime on, and you think just because a ship doesn't happen at the very end, that's so disappointing. And, like, up until then, you thought it was perfect, you thought it was peak, you loved it, and it was just this one thing that knocked it down from being, like, good. That's so silly. Because it ruins the journey that it takes you on, and all the different lessons that it teaches you, and all, like, it's just about, like, valuing your time with other people and your passion, and spending your youth actually dedicating to something that you love, even if maybe in the future you're not going to do it anymore, but you get to look back on it and go, those were some of the best times of my life. I love doing that. And I just think it's really sad to look at Chihayafuru and just go, okay, so the romance though. And I know I can be guilty of it too, but like, I love Chihayafuru as a whole. And while I talk about Taichi and Chihaya mostly, because it's easier to, because I feel like, you know, talking about ships, talking about like aura farming moments, like it's just easy to do that. And that's why you see it most often. But when people boil things down to just a romance, or a character down to just a romance, it's really upsetting, because like Chihaya is so much more than just who is she gonna pick. Like, she is such an inspiring character that it's really sad that the fandom likes to do that to her. Like, she's just as great of a character as Taichi. I wouldn't like Taichi so much if Chihaya wasn't there. So.
No, I get it 100%. And I have had tirades where there's certain series, and it is, I try not to like vocalize it, because then I feel like I come off like a pick-me in this sense, but there's certain series that I see just get reduced to the romance and the ships, and I'm like, were you here? Like, as I mentioned, I'm a huge Clamp fan, and back in my Tumblr days, I used to run a couple of Clamp blogs, and this is probably why I don't like saying stuff online, because I remember that I said, I don't know if you're familiar with XXXholic. I did not, and I still to this day do not ship Domaki and Watanuki, and they wanted to run me offline. They said I was homophobic. They said, like, I don't know love, and XXXholic, like, that's the series of my life. Like, that's the series that people associate me with, because I bring it up all the time, and I'm like, this story is so deep and like literally saved me out of a depression period, and has changed my life to the point where 15 years later I still bring it up in every conversation. And like, you're mad at me because I don't see the two characters and ship, and there may be like, I'm like, you know, people are allowed to ship whatever, but like, there's so much to this story, and just thinking like, okay, these two characters, I'm like, come on. Like, that is, it's definitely, I'm just like, I wish I could give you my eyes so you can see what I see, because there's just so much here to this story.
I've been talking about that with my friends a lot, where it just seems like lately people just want two dolls to like smash together, and they don't want a story to go with it. They just want like a setup. They want the premise, and they want these two characters, and they want to be like, okay, now kiss. Like, here's all the ways I can make them kiss. And like, that's fine. That's great. It's good for your imagination. But stories need to have something else. They can't just be these perfect little encapsulations of your own imagination. Like, they have to have a story to it to be enjoyable, to be good, to like have any sort of purpose or message or meaning. And I feel like a lot of people just like don't want that. I feel like, and this is no knock to Spy Family, because I do enjoy Spy Family, but I feel like that's why some people like Spy Family so much. They have this like guy, they have this girl, and they could just like knock them together, and the story doesn't really give you too much to go on, so they're like, okay, good, I like that, because now I get to do whatever I want with them. And if you give me too much, if you give me too many flaws, if you give me too many, like, I don't know, whatever, then they can't like have as much fun in their little imaginary world they created. I feel so bad saying that, but like, it's just been something I've been so annoyed with lately.
I've had similar conversations, especially with like, again, I think it's like the tropification of it all and everything. Like, and I think there definitely are, like, especially with manga, like there's definitely manga, like if you just want to in and out, they're just hooking up the whole book. There's so many things, but it's like they want something that isn't inherently set like that to then would just be the ships. And I've talked about this before. One of my the Apothecary Diaries, which I watched after it came out, and a big reason why I wasn't like jumping to watch it was because every fan cam edit of Jinchi and Mao Mao like together, and I was like, okay, like there's so many romance, like I'm not in a rush to watch this. And then I finally watched it over New Year, and I was like, nobody's gonna tell me this is China case closed. Like, this is crazy. I love detective stuff, and the romance was barely non-existent. And I was like, why is no one talking about her smelling poison and doing the cases in the plot twist? And I didn't have anything for the show muted, and it was crazy that nothing got spoiled for me. And I was like, this is one of the craziest plot twists I've ever seen, and no one is talking about it because all I'm seeing are Jinchi fan cams. And I'm like, that's fine, but it's also like, this is such a rich story otherwise. Like, why are we not talking about that part?
Yeah, that's always confused me too about Apothecary Diaries. Like, literally all you see is Jinchi and Mao Mao, and like, I will profess I never shipped them. I never like saw them as like a good couple together or anything like that. So like, I've never gotten the hype around them, but the fact that that's all I see, that's like all I see people care about, I'm like, do you guys like the series?
There's so much here, and it shows, and that's the one thing I feel like a good TikTok edit will throw you off, where like you'll see an edit and you're like, wow, this is gonna be the craziest romance of my life, and it's like the store clerk and the one girl, and nothing happens.
Yeah.
But that bring it back to Chihayafuru. I don't even know what I said at that point.
I like all these different variations. Just do every single one you can think of.
So, on the other alternate foot, what is something that you think that would be unpopular in the fandom?
God, I haven't been in the trenches in a while. I mean, I think one of the biggest unpopular things in the fandom, but I think there are a group of people who are my friends who all think the same thing, but there's this one part in the series, once again, this is a spoiler for the end of season 3, around like volume 26, 27, but so Taichi ends up confessing to Chihaya, and she kind of like says, I'm sorry, but she doesn't say yes or no. She doesn't say anything other than I'm sorry. He leaves, and he, you know, like understandably, he quits the Karuta Club. And one of the things that happens is Chihaya kind of doesn't really fully let go. She doesn't like go, okay, I have declined him. I can't be around him if he doesn't want me to be around him. Like, we have to go our separate ways. She doesn't fully, like, come to that conclusion yet. So at the end of that episode, he, you know, does the forceful kiss on her and is like, do you think I'm made of stone? Because she's, like, crying and sobbing, like, don't leave, I need you in this club. And so a lot of people are like, he assaulted her. And while, yes, I will always agree that you do not kiss people who do not want consent, in this story, it works narratively, because I feel like Chihaya as a character would not understand what Taichi is going through, what Taichi is thinking, until he shows her. And that was like the only way that I feel like Chihaya could break off from Taichi, let him leave, not quit the club, whatever. So I think it is imperative to the story that happened. Was it good? No. In real life, would I condone that? No. But is it narratively something that needed to happen? Absolutely. So I don't see it as a bad thing. I think it was completely necessary, and sometimes people in stories do bad things for the story to work. And that is that is my soapbox.
I agree 100%. Even though I have not seen that specific scene, I definitely have seen, especially in BL, there's always a scene where they're like, you're looking at me as a friend and I'm looking at you as something more, and like, you're not understanding how much this hurts me to be with you.
Yeah.
I also think a lot of that, and I say this as someone who, like, my background is I worked in domestic violence, sexual assault crisis centers. I find that a lot of people, when it comes to fiction, just want to blanket, like, this is assault, this is normal, loving behavior. And there's no room in fiction to explore things that in real life we're not okay with, but like you said, narratively in the story it makes sense. And of course there's a bunch of stuff that is not okay, not narratively necessary, but I think that it is part of this morality culture that it is in, where people, it's like anytime anything they see in a movie or show is not what they deem to be acceptable, then it's like, okay, this is assault, this is crazy. Like, it reminds me of when a Sign of Affection was airing, and people are like, Itomi is an abuser and he's a love bomber, and I'm like, okay, now you guys are using words that you have no idea what they mean. But it's again part of this morality thing where it's like people want to be on the right side and not like for a minute like use the nuance and the understanding like this is a piece of media.
I think it also comes down to people being like, I don't like this thing, and I need to moralize it. I need to have a moral reason why I do not like this thing. Like, if you don't like Itsuomi as a character, you could just say you don't like him. You could just say, he's not for me. But I do think at the same time, if we go back to stereotyping shoujo and josei, I feel like a lot of times, and sometimes shoujo does it to itself, especially shoujo romance series lately, I feel like a lot of times people see a relationship in these series and they go, I would not like to be in that relationship. Bad. This is a bad relationship. Or I would like to be in this relationship. Green flag. Yay. This is a good, healthy, perfect communication. And it's like, are we making these series so we can date these guys? Are we trying to tell stories? Like, A Condition Called Love is one of my absolute favorite manga ever. I am not reading that series. I am not loving it so much because I want to date Hananoi. Also because he's a high schooler, but that's not why I read these series. I read them because they have good stories. They have, like, good characters. They make me feel something. And, like, if you're just reading something to be like, oh, that's cute. I want to date him. I like him. Like, try to expand your reading just a little bit.
That perspective, I feel like you just unlocked my brain, because I definitely think it is that self-insert component, especially I think with, this is gonna sound so weird, but like the normalization of like women simping characters, which I don't think is inherently wrong or anything like that, but I do think it's coming to the point where people are self-inserting. They're like, like you said, I don't like this relationship, this is bad, red flag. I do like this relationship, this is good, green flag. And it's like, but there's more to the story. Like, I'm never going to be in this situation. Doesn't mean I can't, like this character or like this story. It definitely is a shift. And I feel like social media and the ability for everyone to share thoughts, it's going to sound crazy as someone who shares their thoughts unprovoked. But I feel like the ability to share thoughts is like, maybe some people shouldn't share thoughts. Maybe you're losing some brain cells.
we don't all have to say things at all times. We can just keep things to ourselves. That's what diaries are for, you know?
But it is like, I feel, again, like people are like, oh, it's not that deep, but it's like, again, look at everything that, like, we don't exist in these vacuums. And it's like with a good character, a bad character thing, like people are just so, like, immediately want to cancel a character. If it's a real live action show, they're writing to the network, like, remove this actor. They're harassing people. And it's like, we no longer have the separation of, like, okay, like, you can like this story, and, like, in fiction, like Game of Thrones from a couple years ago, like, nobody was like, y'all love incest for liking Game of Thrones. But it's like, now you definitely, you know, they're gonna try to dox you at your job.
Yeah.
if you come out in support of Game of Thrones. And we're losing that, like, separation. And I think it's just maybe a side effect of people being chronically online, and also people not having, like, agency in their lives, and they want to see some type of retribution for what they deem wrong.
Yeah.
And attacking people online, or creating these crazy moral, like, yes, no, Itsuomi's an abuser, you love abusers if you like this series. Like, that's the only way that they can cope with the powerlessness in their lives.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, like, having flawed characters helps you also come to terms with some of your own, like, I don't think all media should be like a reflection of yourself. I think it is good to see other people's perspectives and stuff too. Like, you shouldn't just be reading things that are a reflection. But when you see a reflection of yourself in something, and especially when it's a reflection of something that's not very, like, good about yourself, and you see that in someone else, you can, like for Tai Chi, with me, seeing Tai Chi, like, not be a super nice kid and just be really just, like, angry all the time and jealous all the time and not really sure why, and then growing up and being like, God, I was so dumb, and then just really being self-deprecating and just feeling like you're not good enough because you'll always be that kid that you were. Seeing that was great, even though he doesn't do good things all the time, and he is a little petty. He's not a great person. He'll say something mean, or he'll, like, snap back at someone even though he knows he shouldn't. But having that, you can see that, you could go, oh God, that's like me. And then he goes through it, he grows. Maybe not all series will have them grow through it, but you can see that and go, I want to change that. I recognize that in myself, and look at this character going through that too. I can relate to that. So, like, just having a character that's, like, good at all times doesn't help. It's not a good representation of people either. Like, I feel like we keep getting into social media so much, but I feel like people have a tendency to, like, really just cut people off immediately, like, as soon as something happens. And I just feel like that's not the way to go about, like, relationships. And I feel like that's kind of the same with what they do with, like, media too. One bad thing, one thing they don't like, they're like, done. I can't. And not even in a way that's like, this triggers me. I can't deal with this. I physically can't deal with this. It's just like, oh, that's bad. That was a bad thing that happened. Bad show. I'm done with it. Writing the writers saying, oh, you suck. Mm-hmm. I just think some people just have a tendency to just cut things off and not even, like, give it time to marinate.
Yes, another thing that I've written about extensively. And, you know, we are bringing up social media because I feel like, again, these things don't exist in a vacuum, and it would be almost ignorant to deny the way that social media has contributed to people's media analysis and to the way people consume and even process media. And that's another one of my horses that I will beat to the death. But I've talked extensively about how we are relying too much on social media, even to just check out a show. Like, if somebody's like, oh, should I watch this anime? And it's like, you need someone to say yes, and you can't. Yeah. And that, again, in turn enforces how people are acting in the current culture and how we see things. And I think it would be like, it's not fair to be like, oh, it doesn't influence society. It's like, yeah, it absolutely does. And I completely agree where it's like, everything now is the extreme. There's no nuance. Cut this show off. There's like a condition called love where I didn't finish it, but that's just because I'm reading a lot. And I remember so many people being so turned off, and I was like, Colleen likes this, so I know they won't steer me in the wrong direction, just because I know based off like what you talk about, like where your values lie. And I was like champion for people to just like keep going, like keep going. Like, there's a reason for that discomfort that you're feeling, and media can make you feel uncomfortable. It's like nobody wants that uncomfortableness anymore, and nobody wants to then confront, like, why is this making me feel XYZ type of way? And it's like, it's a story. Like, let it challenge you, let it make you think about things.
And a condition called love is very challenging, because it's like, it challenges what you think about, like, the amount that you'll give someone room to grow, or the amount that you think that love is, like, toxic or whatever, you know. Like, it has all these different, like, values of, like, romantic relationships in this show that you can watch and go, oh, well, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with this. Oh, I agree with that. I think that's actually a really good point. Maybe I'll put this into my own life. I don't know. Like, I don't think that people, I keep saying, like, you could take parts of a show and, like, interpret in your own life and, like, make it your own. But I also, at the same time, don't think that every show needs to be something that you can relate to. So I think, like, even if you don't see yourself in A Condition Called Love, you can be like, oh, other people are like this, and they're not all bad people, especially if they're fucking teenagers.
You know, that part, they're a toxic abuser and they're 15. Like, okay.
Yeah, literally. I'm just like, this kid just doesn't know anything about a romantic relationship because he's never had one.
Yep. I agree completely. I think, but it's that like a discernment. Like, you need to be able to discern, okay, this is actually something that I can relate to. And also, this is something I completely can't relate to, but it's still worth me consuming, even if I can't see myself in the show. Like, because I may know someone or something else like that. Like, people don't have that. They don't have that. It's either yes, no. Yes, no.
Yeah, and I definitely lately I've been trying to get out of my comfort zone more, and like read more series about like asexual representation, because I feel like I am so like romance pilled that I'm like, I need other perspectives on things. Like, I can't just have the same perspective on romance all the time, where it's like, oh, romance is great, blah, blah, blah. Like, I should go search out some other manga that are, like, about aromantic people, asexual people, like, yeah. So, you don't always have to see yourself, and it's good to have other representation, too. And I understand when some people are like, oh, I hate romance because, you know, they don't like romance in their own life, but I don't know where I was going with that.
It's okay. So, I'll bring it back to Chihayafuru. Chihaya. Why am I don't know what is wrong with me.
I feel like you're scared to say it because I'm like I'm holding a gun behind the camera or something.
Say it right. No. I just think I'm like, haven't like heard it, and I haven't watched the anime either. So I'm like hearing people say her name, Chihayafuru. I'm putting the emphasis in the wrong place. But anyways, when you think about the legacy of this series, what do you think it is?
So I was actually just thinking about this the other day because Chihayafuru just got a drama adaptation, which is like set 10 years in the future from where the live action adaptations left off. And this story is about one of the side characters in Chihayafuru, and she's a teacher now, and she's a karate instructor at this school, and about this other girl who like isn't really a big karate head or anything. She was in the club just to be in the club. And when I was watching this, I realized that Chihayafuru could be set at any point in time. It could be set with any kind of character, and it would still be Chihayafuru at the heart of it. Like, you could put anyone into this series, and it would be about finding a passion and connecting with other people and actually, like, growing as a person and not staying stagnant in your life. And I think that's what the legacy is here, is that, like, using karate as a means to explore yourself, and using karate and the poems as a means to connecting with other people and kind of, like, getting involved with different people's lives that you would have never got involved with in the first place. And I think it's just those, like, interspersing webs that, like, will always leave Chihayafuru as, like, just a very impactful series, and especially for kids in their teens. Even though this manga is a josei manga, and it was published in, like, a magazine that mostly, like, 40 to 50-year-olds read, I believe, this is such a love letter to being a teen, and, like, the time of your life where you can mess up, and you can, like, not be a great person, and you could still be better, and you can still work hard, and maybe things don't always go your way, maybe you'll make mistakes, but that doesn't mean your life is over. You can keep going. And I also think that one of the big parts of Chihayafuru that really sets it apart from other sports series is the fact that it isn't just about teenagers, because the series, karate in general, it's an all ages sport. So the competitions and whatnot, you're playing with people of all ages. These teenagers aren't just playing other teenagers. You're playing single matches against, like, an adult in their 60s or 70s. So the great thing about Chihayafuru is also that it shows you can continue your passions, Like, you don't have to start as a teenager to be passionate about something. You could be 60 and you could get into karate and you could love it and you can find your passion. Or you could be a little kid and you could just be trying your hardest and it's still like worth something in your life, even if you lose. So I think it's also that idea of you can find your passion at any point in time too. You're not gonna like fall over and die when you turn when you turn 60, or like you could still play in college even. Or this is another spoiler for the manga, one of the main antagonists, I'm gonna put a little quotation around that because he's not really an antagonist, but he kind of is. Throughout the series you kind of start realizing that he is, I can't remember the exact word for it, but essentially he's like losing his eyesight. And the final match with him is all about him realizing he doesn't have to give up karate even with having no eyesight. They've already started ways of like including people who are blind in playing karate, and like he doesn't have to give that up even though he thinks that he does. He thinks it's his last match because he's going to have no eyesight by the end. So it's really just that connecting with other people and finding your passion and keeping that passion and not letting anyone take it from you if that is what you love.
I love that so much. As a passionate person who's in their 30s, it still makes time for their passion. And I feel like the need to, I don't know, we have this thing where it's like you're 30, keel over and die, and it's like, that's not how it works. And I don't know if I've talked about this, but like being a mom, I see a lot of content where it's like, oh, or people who aren't parents are like, oh, I can buy all this manga because I don't have kids. And I'm like, I have kids and I do this. So like, yeah. We definitely need more of those stories that it's like, yes, like age, disability, like you can still carry on. Now I'm like, okay, I need to go watch the anime, add it to my
I think you
list.
would appreciate it because there is a character who has a kid, later character who has a kid, and the husband's really supportive, and they bring the kid to the matches. And at first she like kind of sees this as like, oh, I'm just this old lady who's coming back after being pregnant. Like, no one wants me around. I'm a washed up old lady. But seeing her kid, like, cheering her on, she was like, oh my gosh, no, this is where I'm meant to be. Like, I have all these people supporting me because this is what I love. And that's a really great part of the story, too. Just all these different perspectives, all these different people who love karate. There's another coach for one of the teenage karate teams where, like, beforehand, he's, like, telling them, oh, this is the last of your youth. You need to try your hardest on this final match. And then when they lose, he gives this really great speech about how, like, even though you guys lost, this is not the end of your life. You can continue on. Your teens are not the end for you. You have so much more going on, going forward. And I feel like you just don't see that very much in sports series. And I think that's why Chihayafuru is so special in that regard.
Never. After that high school last match, the seniors have died. Especially how they act when they're like, oh, the senior senpai's retiring. And you're like, oh my God, he's gonna be at the university down the street.
Yeah, there's no senpais in Chihayafuru technically because they did not have a club. Chihaya started it herself. So like she is the senpai who will eventually die.
And everyone will be sad.
Yeah.
So with that being said, what do you, or how, I mean, you have a whole video about this, but what has been the biggest impact of this story on your life, or how has it changed you or impacted you?
It's really hard to put it into words, honestly, because I don't want to be like, oh, it got me out of whatever, oh, it did this for me, it did that for me, because like I don't even know if I could quantify like what exactly it did. It's not even like this was at a time in my life where I was like super down or anything. Like I found it during COVID, so there's that. But I just feel like it gave me a whole new like perspective on my passions and like following my dreams and like not stopping things that I enjoy, and even just like enjoying my time as an adult too. I don't know, like it was just such a beautiful story to read, and I feel like I'm so far removed from it, but at the same time it was like I was there, man.
It changed me. It happened.
Yeah, it's really hard to say exactly like what has changed with me since then, but God, I mean, just talking about it and having reread it so many times and rewatched it so many times now for like different videos or just because my friend was getting into it, like every single time, everything still gets me just like it did the first time. Like I will full on sob during that Tai Chi confession chapter, or I'll full on sob the first time they win a karate tournament. Like it just hits you so much. It's just so beautifully written. I think it's just the fact that it's so beautifully written. The characters are so well developed. Every single one of them, you're like, that is my child. That is my best friend. It's just the fact that it was just so good, I think, is really like what has left an impact on me. Because it's like, that is a good story. Those are good characters. And I think that's really what it left on me. It's just like knowing what a good story is. Like knowing what I like in something too.
Yeah, and I think that's so... I love that that was your answer when you said that, because I do think like not every series has to pull you out of the depths of depression. Yeah. Like we don't have to quantify it in that way, and sometimes you can just be like, wow, like damn, this is good. Like this is just great storytelling. And I love everything, but I've had stories like that in my life that have impacted me that way, where I just walk away and I'm like, how did your mind come up with this?
Literally.
Like, where did you pull this story from?
Like, you absolute genius. I need to get a look inside your mind, crack that noggin open.
Yes. So you brought this up earlier, you had a fun fact, but did you have any other facts? I'm curious, does the creator play the game?
So, one of the fun facts I found. So both Yuki Soetsugu and her editor were karate players in high school. Yuki Soetsugu, who is the author, less so than the editor. And it was actually the editor who came to her and was like, I want to make a karate manga. Apparently when the editor was even like interviewing to work at Kodansha as an editor, she was like, I want to make a karate manga someday. So when she went to Yuki Soetsugu, she was like, hey, let's do this karate manga. And she is a class A player, which means like that you can't go any higher than a class A for karate competitions. So she was like a karate player. And Yuki Soetsugu, I think, brought that team aspect to it, because I think she played in high school, like with the karate team in a club. So it's just very interesting that these two people came together to make this, because both of them were like, yeah, the sport's great. Like, why doesn't anyone know about it?
Yeah, and I think too, like sometimes you don't think of like the editor's involvement. I feel like that's like an aspect that's not really talked about with certain series.
Yeah.
And how like an editor, like that always blew my mind, like how an editor will approach somebody and be like, I have an idea and you should do this idea.
I think it is pretty crazy how we kind of view manga in America as like being solely the author. But it's like the author is mostly like surrounded by a team. Like the author is a front-facing person, but they have this whole team around them that helps them like make these series. And I think to that degree also, we also don't think about like what the magazine likes to do as well. So like the magazine is, let's say we're talking about Shonen Jump. The magazine is an action magazine, a gag comedy magazine. Like, those are the kind of series that are going to go into Shonen Jump. The editor helps you make that series so you can stay in the magazine. And if it doesn't work out, it's because you don't really fit, like, what they have in mind. Or, like, the editor helps shape the series so that you don't go completely off path and make some insane decision that, like, he knows or she knows that, like, isn't gonna be good for, like, manga readers. I feel like too many people give credit to just the author when it is also the editor as well, and especially in manga because it's so quick-paced, you know, like, they have all these people around them helping them because how else are they going to make a weekly manga?
Mm-hmm. I also blame people who don't read the afterwards from the mangaka who list their whole team of people that help them with the series.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had a guest. We recorded on Thursday, which you're also familiar with, Lucy from Opal Lines.
Oh, yeah.
And she was telling me about, like, a lot of the magazines are, like, within, like, a shoujo magazine or a josei magazine, like, then there's a specific niche, like, to what you're saying, like, this specific magazine has this specific type of story under that umbrella. And that, too, as I again, not to sound like a pick-me person, but I feel like I'm someone who, like, I love anime and manga as a whole. So I'm like, yes, like, I want to know more about the industry. And I love, like, you know, talking about these fun facts and things like that. And it's like a lot of people don't. So then they just don't know. And they're like, why did this decision happen? And it's like, well, this, you know, if you knew a little bit deeper, you can tell this is why.
I do find it very funny when people blame the editor for an author's choice as well. Because a lot of people said that Yuki Suetsugu changed the ship last second because the editor told her to. And it's like, the editor won't do that much usually. Like, especially for, like, a josei or a seinen magazine, they really kind of give the authors more free range than in a shonen or shoujo because, like, they're usually not very seasoned creators in those magazines. They're kind of just starting out, so they guide them a bit more. And Yuki Suetsugu has been around for so fucking long. Like, she's not like changing things because the editor is like, oh, actually no, I think the fans would like this more. Like, she said in a lot of interviews that she sits down with the characters, she closes her eyes, and she'll, like, go, so Chihaya, what do you think? And Chihaya will, like, talk back to her. Like, I just don't think the editor had anything to do with that.
That's a big decision for an edit. Like, that's not, like, a small detail or, like, this scene direction. Like, a whole romantic arc. I don't know. But I think people feed their delusions.
Yeah, a lot of people do that for, like, oh, the ship I liked didn't end up together, must be the editor's fault. Because when I read Daytime Shooting Star and Mamura got with Suzume, and everyone blamed the editor, and I was like, who are you people? Get out of here.
Yes. I think something I feel like people also may not do is, I think newer fans are consuming things to be part of a conversation, and they're just missing, like, they're reading really fast, or they're watching. I learned people watch anime at, like, 2x speed. That's crazy.
Insane to me. Insane.
And it's like, are you reading to enjoy or watching to enjoy, or are you, like, wanting to be part of this larger conversation? Because there are things, like, I read, and one of my things, I can reread the same story a bunch of times, and I'm like, will reread stuff, and I'm like, man, it was very clear from the beginning, like, this is the path that this was gonna go, or, like, there's little seeds that have been planted, and I'm like, some of y'all would benefit from just revisiting some of those earlier chapters.
Yeah. I mean, even with Chihayafuru, I've read it so many times, and I still get so many different little pieces or, like, reinterpretations of what, like, oh, I thought this the first time. Actually, now I've changed my mind. I think this now. Like, you get so much new information out of reading things, and in different points of your life, too. You're going to have different perspectives at different points in time. So it is always nice to go back and read something and be like, oh, I can get something new out of this.
Yeah, I was gonna say that about like your like where you are in your life, and that's also too why I never like force what I'm gonna watch, or if I'm like I can't get into a series now, I'll try again later, because I'm like it might just not be the season in my life to receive the messages that story has for me, and it's like it's not I'm not ready there. I'm not there yet to receive the messages that the series is like, hey, your life is gonna change.
Yeah, like I'm not a huge fan of Nana, but I wouldn't give up like reading it again just to be like, hey, I'm at a different point in my life, let's see how this series reads now, you know? Like just giving something a second chance, or even just being like, you know what, let me try that again. I feel like I didn't get it the first time.
But that's funny you mentioned Nana, because Nana's on my reread list, because I read it, and I was just saying this to somebody too. I read Nana when I was the age of Nana's characters, going through the same stuff, and I was like, oh wow, this is my life. And I'm like, I wonder how I would perceive it now. It's been over 10 years that I read it. I'm like, how would it be different? How would I relate to it now that I'm in a completely different spot?
I wonder if you would be like me, because I feel like the reason why I wasn't super into Nana is because I'm at like a semi-stable point in my life, at least like relationship-wise and like growing-wise. Like not like I can't grow more, but if I was 19 or 20 when I watched it, maybe my life, like my perspective of the series would be completely different than it is now, which is just like, damn, they really don't like solve anything ever.
And then like there's a cliff, like the anime ends on a cliffhanger, and then you go to the manga, and there's not that much more of the manga that wasn't adapted. And I was like, okay, but what about my one ship? Like what's happening? But as we coming to the end of this episode, I was like, where are my notes? As we come to the end of this episode, first of all, I just want to thank you so much for coming on here and preaching the gospel of this series.
Of course.
Chihayafuru.
You did it.
Chihayafuru. Okay. I should have put like the pronunciation in these notes. But I appreciate you so much. This is such a fun conversation. Do you have any upcoming projects or anything that you want to promote and let people know what to do?
Check out my YouTube videos.
With that, thank you so much for coming onto my podcast. And if you're listening or watching, thank you so much for listening, watching. If you're listening on YouTube, be sure to leave the comments, you know, as we just talked about deleting comments, but if you have something nice to say, we'll talk about it in the comments. But thank you so much, and I will say goodbye to the listeners.
Bye.
Adios.